1964 Pinocchio by Shozin Fukui. It's everything I sort of wanted from a successor to, say, Tetsuo the Iron Man, but which Tsukamoto's own Body Hammer really wasn't quite up to the task. Oddly enough, a lot of some of Tsukamoto's later films were impressive in a way that Tetsuo the Iron Man was, at that similar caliber, whether it's A Snake of June, whether it's the later film he did, 2018's Killing, or a film which arguably maybe even topped Tetsuo the Iron Man, not because it's necessarily a similar film in too many respects, but Kotoko from 2011 is a real masterpiece. But the point I'm making is 964 Pinocchio felt like a more valid, sort of compelling and sort of adventurous exploration of that same dimension. I'm not trying to say that if it weren't for Tetsuo the Iron Man, this film wouldn't have existed. Maybe potentially in where the production circumstances are concerned, it received some funding because the Iron Man may have been some sort of degree of commercial success for what it was. The real question, I think, is whether creatively it was an inspiration. I haven't done any significant research on that, so I can't say for sure whether it was or wasn't. But what it did do that was interesting was it moved beyond the sort of abrasive, potential like underground cinema, gory sort of body horror or body horror adjacent flicks, sort of post Eraserhead tendency. When Begotten and Tetsuo the Iron Man both fall prey to this, even though those are both brilliant films. We could even argue they're both better than Eraserhead if we really want to, actually. More interesting films, quite possibly. But, black and white was a bit too easy. Black and white made things feel uncanny in sort of olden times or archaic or sort of, binary in their sort of characterizations anyway, just shades of light and dark, sort of greyly, sort of trying to coagulate with each other, these sort of images in a sort of graceful or sort of highly defined rapport, sort of aesthetically, techno-aesthetically. And 964 Pinocchio demonstrates how all of this was still achievable whilst employing colour. Like, it could still appear dingy, horrible, and also, but yet at the same time, more, I think the benefit of using the colour, like if this was in black and white, it would seem too much of a sort of snarky experiment, whereas in colour, it's almost like the serious, horrifying potential exploration of human behaviours in extremes, not in a social commentary sense, but maybe a little bit of that if you want to extract that out of it. But just in terms of pure sort of creative explorations of what can be done with a human form and on staged screen experiments narratively, I mean, this is a milestone. I mean, you can dismiss it as like wannabe sort of disturbing horror fare, but think about what it's sort of committing to within the continuum of narrative film possibilities. Consider everything that you like in the silent era simply because it was existing and trying to sort of invent and experiment for its own sake with form and with the capabilities of the medium. And think about what happened when you decided cinema just went too far or whatever. Because I'm always a bit skeptical of these people who think, the cinema was going great up until this point, and then all this, which coincidentally is in their lifetimes, actually, usually, and then, no, now things have gone downhill, things ought to have been preserved and made sure they go a certain way forever, even though in the history of art that very rarely happens, we very rarely celebrate it in retrospect, and, no one considers the history of art that there should have been, major shifts and sort of preservations undertaken until certain events in their lifetime. Then everything needs to be sort of vacuous formalism, oddly enough. We'll close it here. Thank you, everyone, very immensely.